Trading at Schwab is now powered by Ameritrade, giving you even more specialized support than ever before. Like access to the trade desk, our team of passionate traders ready to tackle anything from the most complex trading questions to a simple strategy gut check. Need assistance? No problem. Get 24/7 professional answers and live help, and access support by phone, email, and in-platform chat. That's how Schwab is here for you, to help you trade brilliantly. Learn more at schwab.com/trading.
Hello, this is the Harboring Light. I'm Mary. I give a conservative perspective about the world around me. Alright, so feedback is greatly important. Feel free to reach out to me, and those sources will be provided for you. Alright, so some of the audio platforms that I'm on Spreaker, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, just to name a few. Alright, so this episode is all about Jack Sparrow, and I'm actually going to go into depth and talk about who is alleged that he's based off, the real pirate that he's based off of. I'm going to give my whole thoughts about that. Give my thoughts about the Pirates of the Caribbean, Johnny Depp, or everything. Here we go. Alright, so Pirates of the Caribbean. I only saw the first one, and I thought it was pretty interesting. I saw it when I was about in the 10th grade or so. And the whole aspects of the dynamic of they did that well, even, because at the time Disney was still in the business of, producing decent films. And Pirates of the Caribbean which turned into a whole franchise, just worldwide phenomenon in lesser fashion, or so to speak, it really took off. And I can see why. So, I'm merely speaking from the first movie that I saw. And it's just unfortunate. Yeah. And then, there's other companies that are like that, but Disney is notorious about that. If something's working, just milk it for what it's worth and continue it out until people get sick of it. And even if people get sick of it and tell you, hey, you're being crazy with how you're presenting things, oh well, they'll still come because it's Disney. People will still come because it's brand loyalty. When in actuality, not realizing that, hey, you can only push your luck with burning your bridges for so long, Alright, so I find the aspects of pirates and the history and everything quite interesting. So it says a whole lot about you could say where of a time in itself, counterculture, because when you look at counterculture and how that is a juxtaposition to traditional ways of life, that also gets into the aspects of what is counterculture saying about the civilization in which you're living in. So at the time when pirates are really prevalent, people, exploration and everything else, it's sort of like they were giving Maverick, go downstairs with your tablet, honey. You okay now? Okay, good job, baby. They were saying hey, this is a different alternative to make a living. You know, Maverick, I asked you to go downstairs, okay? Because mommy's recording. That's too loud. You got to go downstairs, okay? Do you understand? So, you know, at the time, especially exploration and things of that nature, that was left up to the elite class, or if you were commissioned by the monarchy or so forth to be an explorer, that was the way to go about it. But, you know, like everything else, people have their goals and obligations, and also with the aspects of wanting to find different means. You know, that was this whole thing of entrepreneur balls and that any other. That was something that's just been going on since time has existed. You know, people wanted to find other means to make a living and figuring out other resources that works for them to make a living, which I think is in itself also a expression about the aspects of the workforce, trade, and all of that. And so with that, I'm going to expel a little bit about that and then go on. So, you know, again, I think there's a lot in recent years now. There's a lot of talk about how the economy is this, how the economy is that. You know, how we need. It's really unfortunate. So recently, Joe Rogan did an interview with Bernie Sanders, and my goodness, Bernie Sanders. He has those pie in the sky ideas and everything else, and this whole thing with, you know, because when he was first trying to run and everything, you know, I was trying to give him a chance. I was like, oh yeah, that's quite interesting. You know, I'm being, you know, I can admit my faults. I'm being not seeing things for what it is. You know, when as far as student loans, that's a thing that cannot be forgiven. That's something that you got to. It's a step-by-step process, and you know, it's just something that can't be just with the magic wand. It's all gone. And I knew that, but you know, it's just, I don't know. It's wishful thinking. So anyway, you know. And it's one of those things, trying to give a person a benefit of doubt and everything else. So that was a flaw on my end, but I don't know. So when Joe Rogan was interviewing him, it was unfortunate because my husband was telling me it was commentators saying, Joe Rogan goes into asking Bernie Sanders, you know, pressing him about the aspects of, do you really mean what you say, you know? But he really didn't. Because it's, from what I understand, it's he really likes Bernie Sanders, and he was really just setting up the interview and as from the perspective of admiration instead of being, you know, realistic. You know, you can be appreciative of somebody, but you can still, you know, ask honest questions when they're screwing up and when they're not really saying what they mean. But anyhow, my whole point of bringing this up is, you look back to history, especially with the aspects now, the image of piracy, of being a pirate, isn't all that, you know, noble for, you know, all case and purposes. But there are also certain aspects of, you know, piracy that were not all thievery and so forth. And then, you know, when you expand out to the aspects of what is the normal consistency, the normal consistency, a little tongue tied here, with the normal agreed upon imagery here of piracy is that, there's no honor among thieves, really, for the most part. But when you expand out, that's also another aspect of the way in which commerce, the way in which making money, and having a society that is centered around really having a whole value, a whole interest value in what are people's real skills. And when that's a 2-prong, 3-prong, whatever thing, where it isn't all only starting a household. You have wonderful, nurturing parents that encourage what is the real, the child's gift, or noticing that interest and being involved in it. When that goes out into when they become the age to become adults and be working productive citizens, having a economy that encourages that aspects of talking about, skill wise, where you more apt of being. And so I think that the whole aspects of piracy is in its way an example of that. It's people wanting to get money quick, fast, and it's not easy. But the harsh life, or harsh reality of trying to being desperate to figure something out. But there's always, so many sides to the story and so forth. And I'll go into depth more about the actual pirate that Jack Sparrow is based on. But all these elements are quite interesting when you think about the aspects of piracy and its place in history. And so, going back to the movie and the franchise, I think the first movie really got that right when they were talking about the aspects of fitting in and the aspects of your place as the social tier of everything. And the aspects of an unexpected stranger being the person that implements you to your potential, or implements you to get out of your comfort zone. And so when the franchise went on and everything, it really diluted it's a whole starting point of what the movie was about, which is unfortunate, but it's just one of those things, And it's even more unfortunate when in recent time, when the whole Johnny Depp Amber Heard saga happened and everything. It's unfortunate that that believing this whole aspects of how about seeing the truth and really seeing everything for what it is, and then making a decision, and instead of just saying, oh, he's this because Amber Heard is saying that he's this, and not looking at her for her accountability and so forth, and weighing those factors instead of stripping away a beloved character, and then when everything's said and done, expecting him, we're sorry here, pal, just give us another chance, and expecting that to just go over with raving enthusiasm, which it didn't, and it just tanked out. And then it's a whole, just Johnny Depp really, brought that character alive, Jack Sparrow, and that's really something to consider too.
At Arizona State University, we've made online education better, smarter, and more personalized, so you can go further in your aspiring field.
I decided to pursue medicine once I realized that ASU did have the online program for biological sciences. You're still required to learn the same curriculum. You're still being tested on the same content that anyone would be tested on in person. The comprehensiveness of the program prepared me so well for medical school.
Explore over 350 plus programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
With how he, with the aspects of being a method actor and everything, when, he was able to not be so grandiose with, it's unfortunate as it went along, it became more campy and campier, getting away from the, essential image of Jack Sparrow. But for the most part, he really tried his best with method acting, with bringing this character to a modern understanding of how someone like the character that this real pirate he was based off of, how he might have moved about everything. And that's quite interesting. All right, with this said, I'm just going to get into the rest of the facts and close it out. Here we go. All right, here we go. And of course, sources will be provided. All right, so Jack Sparrow was actually based on the real pirate Jack Ward. So Jack Ward was an English pirate who lived around the turn of the 17th century and is often considered the inspiration for Captain Jack Sparrow from the Pirates of the Caribbean film franchise. Excuse me about that franchise. He was born around 1553, probably in Kent, which is south of England. Like many born in coastal areas, he spent his youth and early adult years working in the fisheries. So after the failed invasion of England by the Spanish Armada in 1588, Ward found work as a privateer, plundering Spanish ships with a license from Queen Elizabeth I of England. When James I of England ended the war with the Spanish upon assuming the throne in 1603, many privateers refused to give up their livelihood and simply continued to plunder. You see what I'm saying? It's always so many different sides to the story. So Ward's career began before the golden age of piracy, but he became one of the most legendary pirates of his time. He was known for his eccentric ways and winding history, which often paralleled his fictional counterpart. Ward exploits included capturing an astonishing array of vessels, including the English merchantmen named John Baptiste, richly laden with luxurious damask. He renamed her the Little John, after the English folk hero. So another captured vessel was renamed the Gift. Suggesting that Ward, though reportedly morose, had a sense of humor. So Ward's reputation was not without controversy. The English government did not go along with the estimated value of his cargo. And a report from the ambassador in London told the Privy Council that Venice was close to declaring war on England due to Ward's piracy. So despite this, Ward's legacy would later be overshadowed by names like Blackbeard, but this exploit still turned him into a folk hero to inspire stories for centuries to come. All right, so I'm going to go into more depth about this. So some extra facts besides the AI generated response here. All right. So here we go. It says in 1553, which he was born, his early life was spent, as I was saying, fishing the tidal waters of his native Kent, sowing out and out. Just his experience was like this. So much of it, who spent much of his time getting drunk, he would sit melancholy, speaking dodgingly, and repent of other man's good fortune. And it also says that he was born into an impoverished family. So the first interlink of his future talents came with the defeat of the Spanish Armada. So Ward was one of many mariners, who turned to pirateering. So a semi-legalized form of piracy, which Elizabeth I commissioned and issued license to anyone intending to plunder ships that belonged to the hated Spanish. See, all in the name of the monarchy. It's okay. So the deal was simple. The crown received 5% of the loot, and the Lord's Admiral agent took 10% of this. 10%. So the rest was divided between the ship's owner and the crew. It is not known whether Ward was successful as a pirateer, for these formative years of his career had been lost to history. Yet it was certainly during this time that he learned his practical tricks. Ward's seafaring life took a knock in the summer of 1604 when the Anglo-Spanish War came to an end. So James the Sixth, and to this extent, was the successor to Elizabeth I and banned all pirateering expeditions, and Ward found himself out of work. So according to an acquisition, Andrew Barker, he got ill fortune out of this. From what I understand, this is saying. So Ward was lodging in Portsmouth when he heard a rumor that was to change his life. So a small merchant ship was anchored in the harbor, and it was established with the possessions of a Catholic merchant about to move from England to France. Ward persuaded 30 of his seafaring comrades to seize the vessel and its treasure. His little band stormed the ship that night, overpowering 2 watchmen and clamping them in irons. They then set sail to the English Channel. When Ward went to examine his ill-gotten treasure, he received a rude awakening. The ship's Catholic owner had got wind of their plot and moved his possessions ashore. Ward had stolen a vessel with no valuables whatsoever. So off the island of Sicily, his men spotted a French merchant ship. Ward hailed her, gave the sign of friendship, and passed many hours in courteous discourse with the captain. But he eventually revealed his true colors, raising his practical battle cry for the first time. Within seconds, his men grappled the vessel and boarded it, seizing both ship and crew. Ward had scored his first success. A big ship required a big crew. Ward sailed to Cornwall and convinced a band of smugglers with fishermen to sign up for what he promised would be the voyage of a lifetime. The destination was the Mediterranean, where there were known to be rich pickings. Traders, merchants, and gallants all were to be targeted by Ward and his band. So the first prize was the coastal trader laden in the merchandise. Their second was the 2 master transport ships used to carry galley slaves. With these ships in tow, Ward headed for the port of Algiers, which had been the haven for pirates for many decades. He was out of luck. Just a few months earlier, the city had been attacked by an English pirateer named Richard Gildoff. And the city's governor was understandably ill. disposition toward Englishmen. Ward sailed instead for the port of Sales and the Atlantic coast of Morocco, another local frequented by vagabonds. Its pirates had been attacking merchant ships for years and had gone so bold that they started to raid the shores of England and France, seizing the entire village and selling them in the great slave markets of North Africa. So Ward found himself in like-minded company. A number of English and Dutch pirates were already living in the port, and they agreed to join his team. Ward sold his booty and trimmed his ships and headed for Turns, in which he hoped to make his base. It was a voyage that would transform his life. All right, so let me go on here. All right, so I'm going to wrap up with this. So, turning Turk. News of the disaster reportedly damaged Ward's reputation, and this reputation was this. So, here we go. So, by the time the 1600s hit, he went on a voyage, and Ward's structural alterations to Captain Jack had so weakened the vessel that it broke up in a storm and sunk with the losses of 350 men. Ward himself slipped back to Tunis on one of the smaller vessels in his fleet. So news of the disaster caused a lot of damage there, and Ward's reputation ensued, and he became an object of hatred, being hated for many of the Tunisians. So especially those who had lost loved ones in the disaster. Ward found himself in desperate straits and became increasingly reliant on the protection of the Ottoman Dey. Around 1610, he and his crew took made the decision to turn Turk, converting to Islam and settling permanently in Tunis. Ward himself changed his name to Yusuf Reis and married for a second time, even though he still had a wife in England. One who saw him in later years described him as a shadow of his former self, very short with little hair, and quite white, bald in front. He spoke little, and when he did, it was mostly swearing. So drunk from morn till night, a fool and an idiot out of his trade, is claimed. Ward's legend blossomed even within his own lifetime, and he became the subject of plays, pamphlets, ballads, and books that in turn is demonized and romanticized his exploits as a connoisseur. One of the best known is Captain Ward and the Rainbow, in which the king sends a ship called the Royal Rainbow after pirates. So Ward prevails naturally, and the rhyme ends with these lines: "Go tell the King England to tell him this is for me. If he reigns king in the island, I will reign king at sea." These words provided a fitting epitaph for the man who, up to this point, might have been England's most notorious pirate. So much of his long and troubled lifetime, John Ward was indeed king of the sea. All right, so I'd like to know what you all think. Feel free to reach out to me, and I'll have those ways in which you can do that in this episode. All right, this reaches the end of the Harboring Light. Tune in, turn up, and always take care. Bye-bye for now.